Glinda the Good, the powerful and iconic Good Witch from the Land of Oz. What about her? From her iconic first notable appearance in the original classic to her many faithful and unfaithful adaptations as a guiding figure to Dorothy. And from her reimagined backstory in Disney's spiritual prequel to finally leading her own story in Wicked. Let's get into it! Please help your favorite average movie guy get to 1,000 subscribers by subscribing right now. The Wizard of Oz, 1939. After appearing in the fairy log and radio plays, played by Evelyn Judson as a sorceress, and The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, played by Olive Cox in one scene where she enlarges Toto, we start with the big one, the film that didn't just define Oz for the next century, but also shaped Glinda's identity in almost every adaptation that followed. Played by Billy Burke, Glinda the Good Witch instantly became one of the most recognizable magical characters in cinema. This Glinda is everything people associate with the classic fairy tale archetype, elegant, soft-spoken, endlessly calm and literally descending from the sky in a sparkling bubble. Welcoming Dorothy to the Land of Oz and setting her on the yellow brick road after giving her the ruby slippers, one of the most iconic props in movie history. She performs the functions of not only the novel's Good Witch of the North, which she is introduced as, but also the Good Witch of the South, which she is in the books, and the novel's Queen of Field Mice. While her screen time is actually much shorter than people remember, her impact is enormous. She appears at the beginning and the end as the Deus Ex Machina, guiding Dorothy and ultimately revealing the story's emotional resolution. The power to return home was within her all along. This portrayal established Glinda as the force of benevolent magic in Oz, graceful, maternal, and wise, even when later adaptations reinvented her, making her tougher, darker, and more politically complex. They were all responding to this Glinda. The Wizard of Oz cemented Glinda as an icon, and every adaptation since has either followed her lead or deliberately broken away from it.
You've always had the power to go back to Kansas.
The Wonderful Land of Oz, 1969. After appearing in Shirley Temple's storybook The Land of Oz, played by Frances Bergen, in a surprisingly close adaptation, and Return to Oz, voiced by Peggy Loader in the TV special, 3 decades later Glinda finally appeared again in this low-budget independent film. Played by Hilary Lee Gaze, she is portrayed as much younger than the Billy Burke incarnation, although her pink costume and gown is similar. In the film she sings 2 stirring solos and is able to summon the powers of all the good fairies when restoring Princess Ozma to her rightful form. Apart from undoing Mombi's evil magic herself, this incarnation of Glinda also tells the old Gillikin witch that she has allowed her to practice some of her less horrible tricks thus far, suggesting that every practitioner of magic in Oz is ultimately answerable to Glinda should they go too far. The film itself is very quirky and definitely a product of its tiny budget, but what it does do is reintroduce the idea that Glinda isn't just a benevolent helper. She's one of the most powerful forces in all of Oz.
The Emerald City was governed by its rightful ruler Pastoria, from whom the wizard usurped it.
Journey Back to Oz, 1972. After appearing in Aissetchik ve Sihirli Kucheler Ruyalar Ulke Sinde as the northern sorceress giving Aissetchik her silver shoes, 3 years later Glinda already returned, now in animated form, voiced by Rai Stevens as an acclaimed opera singer, giving this Glinda a much more regal and vocally powerful presence than previous versions. The film serves as a semi-sequel to the 1939 classic with Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter, voicing Dorothy. In this story, Glinda is Glinda the Good Fairy, and the role is small but important. In this film, it is revealed that this Glinda's magic is no match for Mombi's. Still, she helps Dorothy confront Mombi and her army of green elephants by giving her a box of counter magic. She also sings a climactic song called You Only Have You to Look to Dorothy, making her look inside herself for the strength that is not forthcoming from old companions such as the Tin Woodman and the Cowardly Lion, while eventually conjuring up another tornado to bring Dorothy home again. In this regard, Glinda reveals how in touch she is with stark reality, a trait that harkens back to Baum's original Glinda.
Yes, and our friends are in great danger.
The Wiz, 1978. After appearing in 20th Century Oz, played by Robin Ramsey as Glyn the Good Fairy, a gay clothier, 6 years later, Glinda's next major appearance came with this ambitious, soulful reimagining of The Wizard of Oz with an all-black cast. Glinda is played by the legendary Lena Horne, and her interpretation remains one of the most iconic takes on the character. Unlike earlier adaptations where Glinda appears early in the story, The Wiz saves her for the emotional climax, just as the original book did. She arrives as the Good Witch of the South, enveloped in bright celestial light, radiating warmth, power, and a sense of profound spiritual calm. Her big moment comes through the song Believe in Yourself, a number that that captures her entire philosophy, empowerment, self-trust and inner strength. Horn's Glinda is less whimsical and more divine, almost angelic. This adaptation marked a turning point for the character. Glinda wasn't portrayed as simply sweet or sparkly, she was majestic, powerful and deeply inspirational.
If you believe.
Ozu No Mahōtsukai, 1982. After appearing in The Marvelous Land of Oz, played by Kathleen Wagner in the filmed stage play, 4 years later Glinda appeared in this Japanese animated adaptation, voiced by Kumiko Takizawa in Japanese and Wendy Thatcher in English. In this adaptation, Glinda appears closer to her book counterpart, The Good Witch of the South, rather than the bubble-floating figure popularized by the 1939 film. Her design reflects a more classical fantasy approach, flowing robes, serene expressions, and a more mature, regal demeanor. Similar to The Wiz, her role follows Baum's original story. She meets Dorothy after the Wicked Witch of the West is defeated and becomes the key figure who helps Dorothy return home, and offers Dorothy the guidance she needs for her journey's resolution. This Glinda is calm, wise, and less theatrical than many Western versions.
There's no need to be sad, Dorothy, because I will get you to Kansas.
Ozu no Mahōtsukai, 1986. After appearing in Return to Oz, seen in the background at the coronation of Princess Ozma, 4 years later, Glinda returned again in this Japanese animated series, voiced by Aiko Konoshima in Japanese and Barbara Pogamiller in English. This series adapts not just the first Oz book, but the first 3 and the 6th, giving Glinda far more screen time and a much deeper presence in the world of Oz than ever before. Here, Glinda appears in multiple story arcs, reflecting her true role in Baum's novels as one of the most powerful and influential figures in the land. She shows up at the end of the first story to help Dorothy return home, just like in the original book, but that's only the beginning. Because this series covers multiple books, she helps restore Princess Ozma, confronts the witch Mombi, and provides guidance to Dorothy and her companions during times of political turmoil and magical crisis. And interestingly, while Glinda in the books doesn't engage in transformations, here she transforms into an eagle in order to pursue Mombi. Design-wise, this Glinda blends anime elegance with book-accurate majesty, calm, regal, wise, and unquestionably powerful. There's no bauble, no pink ball gown, just the presence of a sorceress who commands immense respect. This adaptation is important because it reintroduced audiences, especially outside the US, to the full scope of Glinda's importance in Oz lore. She's not just a friendly helper who appears at the beginning and the end. She's a leader, a protector, and one of the key stabilizing forces in the magical world of Oz.
I understand your feelings, Dorothy, but won't you find it difficult to leave your friends?
The Wizard of Oz, 1990. 4 years later, Glinda returned once again in this animated series. Voiced by B.G. Ward, this show served as a direct continuation of the 1939 film. Because of that connection, Glinda's portrayal leans heavily towards the Billy Burke interpretation, while looking significantly younger. In the series, Glinda goes to Dorothy for help because the Wicked Witch of the West has been resurrected and advises her throughout the series on how to use her magic slippers. Because of this, Glinda again feels very much like a guiding figure, less involved compared to the previous few adaptations and more similar to the Glinda of old.
Hello, everyone. My dear Dorothy.
The Muppets Wizard of Oz, 2005. After appearing in Wild at Heart, played by Cheryl Lee in a hallucination to Nicolas Cage's character, The Oz Kids, voiced by Erica Schickel, now as a mother to Andrea, and Adventures in the Emerald City, voiced by Yulia Bokanova in this Russian adaptation, 1.5 decades later, Glinda appeared in this comedic, pop-culture-driven retelling of the classic story, played by Miss Piggy and thus puppeteered and voiced by Eric Jacobson. This version leans heavily into parody, reimagining Glinda not as the ethereal floating fairy figure, but as glamorous and confident. Her role here is more similar to The Wiz than the original classic, as she only shows up at the end to tell Dorothy how to get home. As the Good Witch of the South, she is portrayed in a lavender dress with a feather boa, an archetypal Hollywood starlet much more in keeping with the character of Miss Piggy rather than Glinda herself. This Glinda helped introduce a new generation of younger viewers to Oz through the lens of Muppets comedy, and proved just how flexible and adaptable the Good Witch can be.
Going, shoot, shoot, shoot! Enchanté.
Dorothy and the Witches of Oz, 2012. After appearing in Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz, as well as later Tom and Jerry Back to Oz, voiced by Frances Conroy in these cartoon crossovers, Glinda's next notable appearance comes in this feature-length cut of the TV miniseries, played by Noel Thurman as the Good Witch of the South and the ruler of the Quadling country. This portrayal marks a clear shift towards the more mature, mythic interpretations of the character developing in the 21st century Oz adaptations. This Glinda is less the glittery fairy godmother and more the commanding sorceress of Baum's later books. She's poised, regal, and carries a powerful sense of history, a witch whose authority isn't just magical but political. Her scenes emphasize her strength and strategic mind. She first appears in the flashback standing up against the Wicked Witch when Dorothy was younger, and later returns by calming down in her magic bubble when adult Dorothy, together with different versions of her familiar friends, fights the Wicked Witch who has come into the real world. With Harry Potter-esque fights and a different look, in blue and warmly clothed for the real cold New York City, she is shown as a powerful sorceress in more of an action-heavy role than ever before. It's one of the clearest examples of modern adaptations returning Glinda to her roots, a powerful, intelligent leader who shapes Oz's destiny.
Dorothy is the only one to ever kill a witch. She's the one that has the power.
Oz the Great and Powerful, 2013. After appearing in Supernatural, played by Tiffany DuPont as the fairy Gilda, the following year Glinda received one of her most prominent modern reinterpretations in Disney's classy prequel, played by Michelle Williams as the Good Witch of the South, the ruler of a peaceful kingdom inside Oz, and the daughter of the late king. Since this film is a prequel, Glinda isn't yet established as the Good Witch of the South we know from the books. Instead, she's a princess in hiding, accused of dark sorcery by the wicked sisters Evanora and Theodora. Williams plays her with a soft-spoken grace, but there's steel under the gentleness. This Glinda isn't simply a dispenser of comfort and wisdom, she's a leader of a resistance movement, responsible for protecting her people from a corrupt regime. Her magic is portrayed as both elegant and symbolic, conjuring bubbles, light, and protective spells, but the real power she wields is moral clarity. She becomes the emotional compass of the film, guiding Oz himself towards becoming the hero he pretends to be. Their dynamic reframes Glinda not as a distant fairy figure, but as a partner in shaping the legacy of Oz.
I'll never again feel the comfort of his kindness.
Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return, 2014. The following year, Glinda returned once more in this animated film, voiced by the iconic Bernadette Peters. This Glinda is designed to feel familiar. She's still the shimmering, benevolent good witch, but the film gives her a slightly more urgent and responsible edge. Early in the story, she's the one who realizes that Oz is in danger again, this time from the Jester, confronting him but falling victim to him and becoming a marionette. In true Glinda fashion, she obviously also shows up at the end to send Dorothy and Toto back home again.
Magic in the wrong hands can be a very dangerous thing.
Once Upon a Time, 2014. That same year, Glinda's most dramatic live-action reinvention came in this iconic fairy tale series as Ozark. Played by Sonny Mabry, this version of Glinda is almost unrecognizable compared to her pink-gowned fairy we typically imagine. Glinda isn't just a good witch, she is part of a sisterhood of witches protecting Oz with each of their magic affinities. Her story becomes closely bound to Zelena, the Wicked Witch of the West. Instead of being distant rivals, they're former sisters in magic. Glinda is the one who once offered Zelena a place among them, but finds out she was wrong when Dorothy Gale arrived in Oz. And that optimism becomes her downfall. Zelena betrays her, stripping her of her power and banishing her to the northern wastes of Oz, where she ends up meeting Snow White, a very cool crossover. What Once Upon a Time does so well is give Glinda tragedy. She isn't the triumphant fairy godmother of early adaptations. She's a witch who tried to build a world grounded in compassion and paid the price for believing in the wrong person. It's one of the darkest takes on Glinda so far, but also one of the most human. Here, she's not simply good because the story says so, she's good because she chooses to be, even in a world that keeps taking from her.
Now you hold not one pure heart, but two.
Guardianes de Oz, 2015. The following year, Glinda appeared in this Mexican animated feature that reimagines the world of Oz with a completely new visual identity and storyline, voiced by Liliana Barba in Spanish and Cynthia Spillman in English. In this story, Glinda actually revived the Wicked Witch of the West and removed her powers by storing them in a broom given to Dorothy's friends. After the Wicked Witch regains her power and Ozzy the Flying Monkey, the hero of this story, goes on his journey to stop her, he encounters a paralyzed Glinda along the way. And after everything is said and done, Glinda returns and breaks the spell on Ozzy's father, once again showing that she is the character who makes sure that many stories in Oz end on a good note.
Pero no volverás a ser una bruja nunca más.
Emerald City, 2015. After appearing in The Wiz Live, played by Uzo Aduba as the Good Witch of the South, that same year we move into one of Glinda's boldest and most controversial reinventions. In this gritty, high fantasy reimagining of Oz, played by Jolie Richardson, this Glinda isn't the gentle guardian in pink. She's regal, calculating, political, and in many ways one of the most powerful forces in all of Oz. Glinda is reimagined as the former Witch of the North, one of the four powerful cardinal witches. Instead of floating around as a benevolent fairy, she runs an orphanage for potential members of the Wizard's High Council, and has held a deep-seated hatred towards the wizard ever since he outlawed flawed magic. Her appearance is immaculate, her kingdom pristine and cold, and her demeanor is steeped in quiet authority. In some scenes, she feels less like a fairy godmother, more like a high-ranking figure in a mythical theocracy. By the time Dorothy enters the picture, Glinda's world is already on the brink. She sees Dorothy not as a chosen hero, but as a potential pawn, or a threat. This is the first major adaptation to portray Glinda as morally ambiguous, even intimidating, and it leaves a lasting impression. Love it or hate it, Emerald City proved that Glinda doesn't have to be just a sparkling good witch. She can be complex, layered, and formidable.
There are many questions, to be sure.
Lost in Oz, 2015 to 2018. That same year, Glinda also started appearing in one of the most inventive modern takes on the Oz universe. Voiced by Jennifer Hill as the Good Witch, Glinda isn't so much a present figure, specifically in the first season. Instead of looking for the wizard, Dorothy and her gang are now trying to fight Glinda, the most powerful witch in Emerald City, in her search for magic to get her home. After entering Glinda's castle, Dorothy finds out she is missing, making her search even more of a journey. After finding a magical pearl on a munchkin farm, Dorothy and her team finally come face to face with Glinda, who has a plan to send Dorothy home but first needs the stolen magic of Emerald City. What makes this take interesting is how it reframes Glinda as a point of interest instead of an accompanying character. Instead of guiding Dorothy directly, Glinda becomes part of the world's mythology and the characters must navigate that legacy without her intervention until they are able to find her. While Glinda luckily does actually team up more with Dorothy's gang later on in the series.
The Wizard of Oz.
Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, 2017 to 2020. 2 years later, Glinda started appearing on this animated series. Voiced by Grey DeLise Griffin as the Good Witch of the North, her performance gives Glinda a bubbly, energetic charm unlike almost any version before. This series leans heavily into comedy and kid-friendly adventure, and Glinda fits right into that tone. She's sparkly, upbeat, and endlessly optimistic, the kind of witch who can fix a magical disaster while keeping her hair perfectly curled. In the show, Glinda often acts as a motherly figure to Dorothy, offering wisdom, enchantments, or the occasional magical intervention when things get out of hand. Interestingly for this series, she also has an evil twin sister named Melinda the Mean. It's one of the most playful Glindas ever put on screen, sparkly, stylish, and full of personality, proving that even the Good Witch can evolve with the times while keeping her signature charm intact.
You need one of my bubbles to protect the city until the storm passes.
Wicked, 2024. 7 years later, we get to the quintessential modern Glinda portrayal. After 2 decades as a Broadway phenomenon, the story of Glinda and Elphaba finally made its way to the big screen. This time played by Ariana Grande as Glinda Upland. What makes this film unique in Glinda's long history is that for the first time she isn't a supporting figure or a background mentor, she's the protagonist. This is Glinda's origin story, how a bubbly, privileged, slightly self-absorbed young woman becomes the Good Witch of the North. The film digs deep into her early years at Shiz University, where she begins as the popular, glamorous social star everyone wants to be. Grande plays her with a blend of comedic timing, musical precision, and genuine vulnerability. What begins as rivalry turns into friendship, and what is friendship slowly fractures into tragedy. Through Elphaba, Glinda learns compassion. Through Glinda, Elphaba learns trust. And through the events that tear them apart, Glinda grows into the witch we eventually recognize. Visually, the film leans into Glinda's aesthetic evolution, from pastel-sewed schoolgirl to the shimmering, iconic Good Witch of Oz. And musically, Grande's performance brings new color to songs like Popular and Thank Goodness, capturing both the satire and the sincerity embedded in the character, even earning her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. In many ways, Wicked is the deepest psychological exploration Glinda has ever received in film or television. It shows her flaws, her insecurities, her privilege, and her attempt to do the right thing, even when the right thing hurts. And for millions of viewers, this is the version of Glinda that will define the character for a new generation.
And you can call me Glinda.
Wicked for Good, 2025. Finally, we reach the most recent chapter in Glinda's ever-evolving screen legacy, the second part of the 2-film adaptation of the Broadway musical. This installment once again features Ariana Grande as Glinda, but now the stakes are higher, the tone is darker, and Glinda steps fully into her destiny as the Good Witch of the North. If the first film was Glinda's coming of age, For Good is her reckoning. It's here that she confronts the consequences of everything that happened at Shiz, everything that happened with Elphaba, and everything the wizard's regime has done to Oz. The bubbly, optimistic girl from the first film is still there, but now she's tempered by grief, responsibility, and a determination to set things right. By the end of For Good, Glinda stands alone in the Emerald City, not as the sparkling fairy figure we knew from 1939, but as a woman who has earned her title through sacrifice and sorrow. It's one of the most mature, emotionally resonant portrayals of the character ever put on film. And with this final chapter, Wicked doesn't just retell the Wizard of Oz mythology, it reframes Glinda as one of the most complex characters in the entire world of Oz.
Think of what we could do together.
And there you have it, the full history of Glinda the Good in Oz. From her many interpretations as a mentor figure to Dorothy to her own story in Wicked. Now let me ask you, what did you think of Wicked for Good? And what is your favorite Glinda the Good portrayal? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe for more videos like these. I have been Dean, the average movie guy on your screen. Big thanks for watching. See you next time. Roll the credits.